Well, they planned to set something up, and
Yeah.
it happened to work out well for them. You can only do as much as you can do, right?
Of course,
So
yeah.
they clearly had a plan. They've gone full aggro as much as possible,
Right.
and we're going to see if that plan is going to pay off as we get into game number 1. Right. Do you know this? Z-Ride-X? Zridex? Do you, Yeah?
I would say Zridex, or I will
Zridex.
be saying Zridex anyway.
On a Z to the ride to the X. That's where it's going for. No?
No!
Okay, Zridex it is. Discussion over.
If you're a Hungarian out there or a friend of Zridex's and you happen to know, do give us a little tweet.
Imagine.
And we'll correct
No,
it on the
it's actually
fly.
Z to the right to the X.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, wait, what?
I am actually his mother, and I will tell you that on his birth certificate it says Z to the R to the IDE,
X.
double hockey sticks.
Okay, never heard that before. Is that something you just made up?
No.
Oh, okay. Is it like a yo-yo term or something?
A yo-yo term. No.
Oh, well, I'll never know with you. You told me you were walking the dog the other day, and I thought you'd bought a dog.
This never happened. This is an entirely fabricated conversation.
Jeez, I always run with your fabricated conversations.
You just don't know, do you?
Sometimes. Let's go. 2-1 on the board. The Arcus veteran just going to start to do something, although it's definitely not the opening that Zridex wants right now. I mean, yeah, pressing the hero power is not bad. The Purifier's Maul is the recovery step here, but everything else just looks a little bit slow. If this turn 5 whiffs, then they're kind of throwing air at the Shaman here.
Throwing air. Wow. Hungary, the team of airbenders.
It's a shame the film was so bad.
Yeah. You say that about a lot of things, though, really, couldn't you?
What? It's a shame the film was bad?
Yeah. Just, I mean, movie adaptations have only really started to get good in the last 5 years or so. Before that, like every video game, every comic book, anything that got made into a movie
Iron Man is
was
10
just
years
terrible.
old.
That's true. I'm underestimating how old I am.
You understand how old we are. It's
Yeah.
like, okay.
But you get my point. The MCU kind of changed the game. Before that, everything was pretty trash. Hearthstone, by the way.
The movie adaptation of Hearthstone went really well. It's called Warcraft.
Yeah.
It definitely wasn't bad. Had some amazing CGI. And the orcs actually looked fantastic. But does this orc look fantastic in this
It
game?
was a pretty fantastic spot for it to come down. The Acolyte of Pain, if I did choose to talk about Hearthstone for the last 45 seconds instead of movie adaptations, it was the point I was going to really address, was that Russia were deciding whether or not to coin that Acolyte of Pain, and their big fear was Raid Leader. Raid Leader was the big punish for the line that they took. To be out a coin and really very little cycle for their Acolyte, but then their justification for that, well, if that happens, you know, we have a good opportunity to just drop Mana Tide on the following turn anyway, so it hasn't worked out too badly for them in the end. But again, it's the difference between, you know, they can draw a Keleseth at some point in this game instead of a Pyromancer, which with a handful of Earth Shocks and Lightning Storms is a very, very big difference.
Yeah, and looking at the hand here, you can sort of tick some small boxes off the quest that is Shudderwock, you could argue. There's the 2 Life Drinkers, the Chain Gang, and Shudderwock himself. How important is that in this matchup as a whole? Are you ever actually getting to the point where you need to play Shudderwock to win? Is that a common occurrence?
Yes. No, I think you really can get there. I think Old Paladin is the most resilient aggro deck in the game. It's the one that you have to beat twice, perhaps what makes it the most popular one. Like, you have to beat it on board to stop it running you over, and then you have to beat its resources as it tries to grind back onto the board in the later stages. And some decks can bypass that just by making a big board of their own, at which point Old Paladin just collapses like a flan in a cupboard. They can't deal with it. But Shudderwock can't really do that. They don't make a board that you can't beat, so they kind of have to get to that Shudderwock point.
Things have to go really weird, right? Like Keleseth into, you know, a buff 3-drop, into Sirenite Chain Gang, into a Life Drinker, you know, weird things like that you end up being a little bit the beatdown. I will say, Russia playing MC Tex, because I think that's pretty important to try and flip the board if they can.
They are playing a single copy of Mind Control Tech, yes.
That's also one thing that they can do with Shudderwock. Even if it doesn't line up in the infinite Shudderwock world, they can actually just say, well, you know what, wait, is one Shudderwock just good enough to win this game? You know, steal a couple of minions, build a big board, and then just swing back for the lethal. It could come to it.
I can see it. Previous turn, by the way, Hungary decided to go face, ignoring a Mana Tide, which I do kind of like in the matchup. It's influenced by a lot of things right now. Firstly, just the texture of their hand, that classic Hearthstone casting phrase that everyone despises. just tells them to go face. They have Leroy, they have Fungal Mancer, all these tools to push damage, level up can end the game as well, and they're just, you know, slowly whittling away and setting up 2 to 3 turn lethal for themselves. But secondly, Manatide Totem being left on the board is actually like a detriment, because quite often when you make your big board push with Fungal Mancer or level up, like 12 to 13 total health is about what you end up with on the board. So then Manatide being there as well can then push that up to 16, which is outside of the range of Volcano.
Yeah, with the Divine Shield as well. And something the Russian Federation do have to think about is the impact of the Vine Cleaver in 2 turns potentially, and it is probably the one card you do think a fair few turns ahead, because it's the one card that will probably just get slammed on 7 if they have it, and then it's going to do 4, 8, 12, you know, it's going to stack damage very, very quickly. So it's something they have to consider, but I think the more pressing matter here is the I might be dead next turn issue.
It does seem somewhat pressing, yes.
And they can't really do everything they want, right? They can Lightning Storm and try and do what they can in terms of clearing the board. Maybe even with a Hero Power on Earthshock. Probably with the Earthshock to take the Raid Leader down, this seems the safest option, but they are going to go with Hex instead.
Yeah, you can Hex Earthshock and that takes a massive chunk of power off the board,
Oh,
right?
sure, I actually, not going to lie, half didn't notice that the other Fungal Mancer minion was just a dude.
Right.
Oh, that's the card I hate Shudderwock to play against. Glacial Shard.
All right, you want to get something off your chest, Draven?
Oh, he's just annoying. He won't go away.
Would you like to lie down on my sofa? I'll get my notebook out.
Not after the things you talked about a little bit earlier on. That sounds like some kind of trap to me.
Show you some pictures of some weird inky shapes. Tell me what you see.
You wouldn't want to hear the answers.
Glacial Shard. Glacial Shard. Yeah, that's a Glacial Shard.
It could be.
Yeah, could be.
I mean, it's kind of just a mess of shapes in itself,
right,
as a minion, so it's very likely. Especially if the ink was blue.
What would Uther?
Leroy only 3 off this turn, meaning second Blessing of Might draw, I think, this turn would have been lethal. They even use 1? I know they mulliganed to 1 away, I think. But still, it's around the state of the game where from Hungary's position, you're putting your opponent on healing rain to stay alive, essentially, in the spot that you're in. Especially since you're playing a 2-5 here, so Lightning Storm is not likely to be a full clear. You can just beat away with the Corridor Creeper again on the next turn.
That's it, right? It looks like Hungary have kind of prepped for every scenario.
Yeah.
In the fact that they've gone wide enough, they've gone high enough in terms of the Corridor Creeper, and even the Divine Shield's a bit of a pain. And with only 6 mana available, any form of like big clear is just probably going to blow them out for a whole turn next turn, in which they can then, guess what? Set up level up again. They have 2 Divine Shield minions in hand that are going to be awkward to clear as well.
Right. Now with 2 healing rains, though, this is a lot of security for Russia. They have a potential Storm healing rain play this turn, and then potentially they can combine the second healing rain with the Saronite Chain Gang as well, because you do generally want to be looking to use your healing rains in turns where you do something else powerful alongside them, right? You'd never really want to have a healing rain pass kind of turn where you just essentially time walk for a turn, right?
And that's the problem with Storm this turn, right, as well. If you Storm, then you can't healing rain Saronite.
It locks you out of Saronite, yeah,
mana,
for the next turn at least, yeah.
So you do have to just be prepared. You know, there's not much they can do about it. This just has to happen, I think, in almost every instance. But you have to just say, okay, well, I'm probably not going to healing rain next turn and try and do something else.
Yeah, they still have...
you get pressured that hard.
Right, they still have like Saronite Glacial Shard, for example, which is a huge amount of pressure for Hungary to try and get through. It's a good turn as well, because it means turn 7, what you're scared of is Vine Cleaver, as you talked about earlier. Coming down from the Paladin, Saronite Glacial Shard is a great response to that.
Now, these are the tough moments when the aggro deck, or just, you know, the Paladin specifically, is right. It's gone back up to 21. I had him pretty much dead. What do I do, and how far enough do I go to try and make this happen? Because this gets very hard right now. I do think starting off with a Stonehill can really shape your plan, though.
Might be a turn for you to try and force Leroy through is the only alternative that I can see. Just play Leroy, value trade one of the 1/1s. Your opponent's used a Lightning Storm. They haven't shown any real signs of having Volcano yet, but getting hand reads is harder when there's a Manatide Totem on the board, because as we can see, the Manatide did draw that Volcano at the end of the previous.
And also as well, like, actually Overload makes hand reading quite hard, because you could be like, well, they wouldn't have played it anyway, or they couldn't play it, or now they could, but they didn't. You know, things start getting a bit more complicated when the player you're trying to read's turn is restricted in itself. That board got wide really quick, though. I blinked to miss that, but yeah, 7 minions on the board.
Yep. That's what old Paladin does. They press the button and they play some things, and they have 7 minions in play pretty much any turn they want.
People saying, oh, that's what old Paladin does. Like, it's a new deck time. Good old Paladin.
Not only was that what Paladin does, it's also how Lorinda casts. You know, they just press the thing and play some things, and then they've got some things in play, and then they hit you with the things, and they floop you a bunch, and then you've got a handful of gubbins that just doesn't do anything.
And then you've got to queue your next thing up to try and win the thing.
Yep. So they need a strategy of how they use all these things in their hand in a way that they don't die, because that's the goal of the game.
Maybe I am casting with Lorinda again. Not even here to defend himself.
I mean, if he's going to swan off and leave us in the middle of the day, then I'm going to relentlessly mock him while he's not here. You talked about this exact dynamic in the last series.
Lorinda's like, oh, I don't want to be too mean. I'm like, Lorinda, you are a puppy dog compared to what I'm used to.
14 health on the board, by the way, plus the 2 Divine Shields makes 16. So this Mana Tide being an issue is as I was mentioning earlier, that extra 3 health on Russia's side of the board. But it's hard to say that it's been a negative for them so far with how many cards it's picked up at this point.
So now I feel like you just take the level up, not only because there's literally nothing else they can do this turn unless the trades happen, but a 3 minion level up. I think that's probably as good as you're ever gonna get reliably in this matchup.
It also, how much do you push then? You push 3, 4, 5, 6. Your opponent goes down to 12. So if you get 6 power living on the board, you then have Leroy coming through on the following turn. It looks promising.
Divine Shield Minions are still quite annoying.
Yep.
And again, what you've got to do here as well is you could think, oh, well, they've got Volcano, whatever. Right, but they're overloaded the next turn. So, yes, they cleared turn 1, but we've seen what Paladin can do. You set up again, and this time they might not have the second Volcano, or you've already seen one Lightning Storm, you've already seen one Healing Rain. They can't have unlimited options, especially with limited mana.
19, if I've counted it right this time, times of health on board, and the Glacial Shard trade can only take 3 off the board, so it's 16 again. Meaning that the most likely scenario is a 1-1 Stonehill defender living at the end of the turn, but Silvername still has plenty of clear options. He can Earthshock something to get a full clear, he can just Volcano Healing Rain and be totally fine with just leaving one thing in play.
Yeah, I was going to say Earthshock really does help. Because it removes 2 health from the board, and the trade as well removes another 3. Yeah, I guess, do you even really need to Earthshock right now? Volcano.
I like Volcano Healing Rain a lot better.
Get it done. Next turn, you can maybe play double Life Drinker. Oh, sorry, single Life Drinker and a Farsight. Start the Earthshock spare.
Yeah, Life Drinker Acolyte, Life Drinker Glacial Shard Totem next turn. These are all possibilities.
Cheeky Stonehill.
I think this is the best point in the game to Healing Rain. It looked like, just based on mouse movements, that Russia had a very quick discussion about Farsight and Acolyte, but this is the least pressure you'll be able to Healing Rain under for the rest of the game, most likely. There is that Blessing of Might that would have been lethal. There was a lethal draw for this Blessing of Might on turn 6, I believe it was.
Yeah, to be fair to me, even this Iron Fur Grizzly plus Lost in Jungle hero power means that you can still just look, the board's back. Imagine if you had Healing Rain next turn. You're in massive trouble. Dumping the whole hand. This, of course, makes Divine Favor as a draw. Not too bad either.
Right.
Can draw a lot of cards. Divine Favor comes down.
How's that card this turn, Raven?
It's all right. It's all right, especially with the Glacial Shard and the Earthshock as a... Even if Russia care enough to deal with that bear 100% of the time.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind the Glacial Shard this turn, locking out face. You kind of have to think about which top decks beat you at this point, and Vine Cleaver is one of those cards. So preemptively freezing the face here could put you in a position, but with both Life Drinkers in hand, I guess they're just going to use the mana efficiency, more likely just to play it out there, especially since they got the full high roll as well. Since they killed the Grizzly, it's less likely that they need to mess around, but there is the Vine Cleaver.
Okay.
So that's 2 1/1s and 4 damage on the board that could have not been here.
That is true, but I thought of it more backwards than that, and because you're Lightning Storming, you were never going to Shudder Walk anyway, which means that you can just Glacial Shard and do a setup for Shudder Walk the turn after.
Right, exactly. That's a good way of putting it.
Ooh, nice, nice. Wow, they could do all three. Life Drinker, Mind Control Tech, and Glacial Shard, and you might think, oh, it's just a 1-1. But one, you know how powerful these are in Paladin, but most importantly, it's live for the shoulda-what turn.
Right.
And Hungary are not pressing the button next turn, they just are, so it means you're going to get some more steals going forward as well.
Yeah, and it's worth saying the way Russia played it out as well left more mana open on this turn. If they'd have gone Glacial Shard on the first turn, this would have almost had to have been their double Life Drinker turn. Although that's not true. They could probably play out this game with one Life Drinker. But let's assume you want to play both. This would just be double Life Drinker go.
And it's a very flat turn.
They'd have no mana for anything else. You know, this way, over the course of the game, whether you use Glacial Shard 2 turns ago or 1 turn ago, you still prevent 2 1-1s and 4 damage over the course of 2 turns. So maybe the more mana efficient play was correct from Russia.
Yeah, I liked it. Now there is that option.
You just said you didn't. You were saying because you didn't, because you overloaded and you weren't Shadow Walking, then you could have your Glacial Shard turn.
No, which is what they did. They just played Glacial Shard on the second turn. That's what I said.
Okay.
I'm so confused.
All right.
Hagatha as an option, though. I guess they just don't read it. Let's go.
Yeah, Shadow Walk just seems game winning here. No real need to mess around with the Hagatha.
Well,
they're going to shard, they're going to MC tech, they're going to hit the best minion, because why wouldn't they? They're going to shard some more, and then they've still got Hagatha as a ball clear afterwards if they want it. That's just game.
And there's just no answer to 6/6s, and this is what I was saying. In terms of the overall setup, and it did work for the Russian Federation. Silvername had a bit of a better performance with that deck than he did last week in terms of that Ragnarok shots. Not quite